Samson and the Slave Queen. Umberto Lenzi may not have made films which people consider good, although I stress that, given what he was working with, he's a good director. Check out the screen caps of this film. Samson and the Slave Queen. This is Zorro meets Machiste. You know who Machiste is? Well, he's been an Italian... He's been this great strongman protagonist of Italian films since 1914's Cabiria. Like, with a very long time. In this film, for the English dub, for the English language release, Machiste was changed to, Hercules or a son of Hercules or whomever. Sometimes in this case, it's Samson, the biblical character Samson, long hair, What we have is a film that's, needlessly well directed. He meets Zorro, and Umberto Lenzi's films were very garage, although I think he tried to give them a certain dynamism. They peak in the 1960s, possibly with 66's Criminal, which is, I guess, a diabolic or satanic. Some of those great adaptations of the Italian comic book characters around that time. But Criminal's garage qualities are what makes it quite interesting, I think. You're impressed with a director conjuring anything, given that he had essentially nothing. And the fact that it mimics a mainstream Hollywood or higher budgeted film, and not necessarily Hollywood, in case of a Diabolic, it's extraordinary just to witness it. I think the simple act of making something out of nothing is extraordinary. I'd like to read out a couple of IMDb user reviews for Samson and the Slave Queen. There's only 4, but the oldest and the most recent are both interesting. B. Simmons on the 14th of December 2000 refers to it as a cinematic jewel. This rare costume adventure differs from other Italian films made in the same era, for it actually takes place in a setting highly reminiscent of 16th century Spain. When the king of Nogara dies of the plague, his 2 nieces, Malva and Isabella, find themselves in a bitter deadlock for the throne. Malva, the evil one, gets Garcia, the captain of the guard, to intercept the king's troops and confiscate the scroll case containing the king's will. To this end, Garcia employs Samson, Alan Steele, to steal the scroll case and deliver it to Malva. Of course, Samson does not know what she has in mind. Meanwhile, Isabella enlists the aid of Zorro, Pierre Brice, to get the scroll case himself and thus thwart Malva's evil plans. I really enjoyed this film because it contains lots of action and vibrant colours, as well as a nicely done soundtrack. Alan Steele is at his best, and Pierre Brice is perfect in his role as Zorro. Lenzi has created a worthy film, and it will survive many viewings. It is a shame that this is unavailable on VHS or DVD. Well, maybe soon. Indeed, I believe soon it was. And the most recent review, from Larry Anderson, this is informative. This was shown widely at drive-ins and on TV. This is from the 19th of July, 2022, last year. I remember this movie well, as it was shown many times at late-night drive-ins and later on TV. Alan Steele was part of the golden era in Rome, when most of these strongman movies are made. Alan Steele was from Austria, and later retired there. He made a lot of different movies, but will be mostly remembered for this title and Hercules Against the Moon Men, both of which are blockbusters in Canada and the USA. Seeing Alan Steele fight the crocodiles worth viewing the price of admission. Absolutely. There are many good versions on YouTube for you to enjoy. I've also added a few choice picks in the IMDb gallery. Watch it for some great fun. Thank you, Larry Anderson. I'd like to read out a little bit about who Umberto Lenzi was. I believe I've read out this legacy section on Wikipedia on one of my previous videos. I've discussed a few Lenzi films. I'd like to talk about him in the 1960s. First his early life and then the 1960s. That's what we're interested in. We're discussing right now. He worked in the 70s and 80s and the very early 90s as well, although his 60s output, quite prolific, is ultimately what I'm referring. When I was referring to his films earlier, I was thinking of his 60s films in mind. So Umberto Lenzi was born on the 6th of August 1931 in the Massa Marittima province of Italy. Lenzi was a film enthusiast early as grade school. While studying law, Lenzi also created film fan clubs. Lenzi eventually put off studying law and began pursuing the technical arts of filmmaking. He graduated from Rome's Centro Sperimentale di Cinematografia in 1956 and made I ragazzi di Trastevere as his final exam, a short film influenced by the writings of Pier Paolo Pasolini. Lenzi also worked as a journalist for various newspapers and magazines, including Bianco e Nero, and between 1957 and 1960, penned a number of detective novels and adventure stories using a pseudonym. I may have read this before on the channel, actually. But to the 60s, let's read this out and then we'll close the video. Prior to his officially first credited film as a director, Queen of the Seas, Lenzi directed a film in Greece in 1958 titled Mia Talida Stin Elada, or Vacances ad Athene, which was never released. Lenzi's films of the 1960s revolved around popular genres of their respective time periods. In the early 1960s, Lenzi directed many adventure films, including 2 features about Robin Hood. The Triumph of Robin Hood and The Invincible Masked Rider. Triumph of Robin Hood we've discussed. It's a quality, fun film. It's a kind of a garage Adventures of Robin Hood by Michael Curtiz, the 38 film. Errol Flynn. The Invincible Masked Rider is a bit lesser, unfortunately. It's a bit bland. I don't think it had much money or enthusiasm behind it compared to others. And 2 films about Sandokan the Great, 1963, and Pirates of Malaysia, 1964, both worthwhile. Sandokan's a really cool character. There's some good Italian films about him. Pirates of Malaysia is a lot of fun if you want an old school swashbuckler. You can find it on YouTube in pretty low quality, but garage swashbuckler, pirate stuff, I find it fun. Yeah, it warms my heart in a way. By 1965, Lenzi began directing European spy films such as 008 Operation Exterminate, good stuff, followed by Super 7 Calling Cairo and The Spy Who Loved Flowers. They're both star Harry Brown. The Spy Who Loved Flowers is a sequel to Super 7 Calling Cairo. Both we've discussed on the channel, all 3 of those Euro spy films. Lenzi was pretty good at those garage Euro spies. Spy Who Loved Flowers, possibly the best of the 3, though 008 really cool also. And even adapted the Fumetti Neri comic character Criminal to the screen. We'll talk about that eventually. Lenzi then turned to making war films such as Desert Commandos and Legion of the Damned, and westerns such as Pistol for 100 Coffins and All Out, 1968. Lenzi had box office success in Italy with his erotic thrillers starring Carol Baker such as Orgasmo, it's one film, So Sweet, So Perverse, it's another film, and A Quiet Place to Kill, which are influenced by French film noir movies drawn from the works of Jacques Deray and René Clement. Alright, and as I said, we'll close the video here.